This short video will give you an introduction to defining and using a glossary in your projects. I'm going to take this video almost back to front to the normal process of demonstrating how to do something and showing you the end result to illustrate what the glossary is intended to do for you in the project. So I've got a help file here that I've already added the glossary to, and if I click on the glossary node in the table of contents, I can see there's a glossary topic produced that's indexed by the glossary term letter, and each individual term and definition are listed in the glossary. And also in one of the topics here, I've got an instance of a glossary term that when clicked shows the definition for that glossary term. So what you can see is that the glossary provides a central place in which you can define your terminology that you're using in the documentation you're producing, but also a way in your content to mark a term such that when clicked the user can see a full definition for that term. So we're going to backtrack now and show you how to actually implement a glossary within your project. So I've opened up the real world sample, the conceptual sample project here, and the first thing I'm going to do is switch to the Tools ribbon tab and open up the glossary editor, and it opens up with a blank list. I haven't got any glossary terms defined in here as yet, so the first thing I'll do here is click the new toolbar button, and I'm going to define a new term for supplier. So that's one of the common terms I'm using. So I'm going to type a short definition of what a supplier means in the context of my documentation. Okay, so now I've defined the term and I've defined the definition for that term. The next thing I'd like to do is to include a link for the glossary on my table of contents here. So there isn't one here by default, and I'll drop down my table of contents choice here and I'll choose glossary, and there we are, we have a glossary node added to the table of contents. Now the final thing I want to do here is in one of my topics is to change where I've used that term within my content here, supplier, to be a pop-up link to that glossary definition. The simple way to do that is to surround the term with dollar signs, double dollar signs, and if I quickly switch to preview, I can see that that's now marked up as a glossary term, and if I click I get the full definition for that glossary term. I can also use a slightly different caption for the glossary term while still referring to the term itself. So a common example of that is where you want to use the pluralized version of that term rather than the term itself. So let's change this to one or more suppliers, and the way I do that is to include a colon after the caption and then the actual term I want that to refer to after the colon. So there's the caption, and that's the term that I want to appear when the user of my documentation clicks on that. So just to illustrate that, so although this says suppliers, when I click it's actually the supplier term that is referred to and is defined in the pop-up. Okay, so I've defined a glossary term in the glossary editor here. I've added a glossary node to the table of contents, and within my content I've added that reference to the glossary term. So I'm just going to go ahead and build this, and if I open the help file for viewing, I can see the glossary node on the table of contents here as we saw at the start of the movie, and if I look at the suppliers topic that I added the glossary reference to, I can see the definition appear when I click on that glossary term. So that concludes this short video on defining and using a glossary in your projects.